Before you took your first breath, before your tiny hands unfurled to greet the world, there was a moment not measured in seconds or centuries when you stood on the threshold between realms. You were not yet bound by gravity or memory, but you were not entirely free either. Somewhere between the silence of the infinite and the murmur of the human heart, an agreement was forged, not with pen and paper, but with intention and resonance. It is said that each of us carries within us a soul contract, an unseen document etched into the very threads of our being. And yet, for most, it lies buried beneath the sediment of forgetfulness, as though hidden deliberately, as though someone or something preferred you never to remember its terms. The idea of a soul contract is not a quaint metaphor. It is an architecture of existence. Imagine a vast cosmic library where every soul's blueprint rests. Illuminated scripts written in a language not of letters, but of light. Yours is there too, containing the intricate coordinates of your life's path, the challenges you would meet, the people who would alter your course, the wounds you would endure, and the gifts you would eventually uncover. The contract is neither a prison nor a prophecy, but a compass, pointing toward the experiences your soul deemed necessary for its growth. You are not a random traveler in the labyrinth of life. You are both the cartographer and the wanderer. Yet here is the unsettling truth. If such a contract exists, why do so few recall its contents? Why do most live as though tossed by chaotic winds, rather than guided by a deeper, deliberate current? The answer may lie in a conspiracy of forgetfulness, not in the sense of malevolent forces plotting against you, but in the more subtle way systems, structures, and even your own survival instincts conspire to keep you within the narrow lanes of conditioned reality. Imagine waking from a dream so vivid it still tingles in your veins, only for the details to dissolve in the harsh light of morning. That is how the memory of your soul's agreement slips from you when you enter this world. And those who benefit from your forgetfulness, whether they are human institutions, collective fears, or the inertia of the physical plane, have no interest in you remembering. To understand the magnitude of what has been hidden, you must first picture your life not as a straight road, but as a woven tapestry. Each thread is a choice, each knot a turning point, each color a lesson. The soul contract is the pattern underneath the unbroken design that runs through the chaos. It explains why certain moments feel destined, why some people enter your life with the strange familiarity of déjà vu, and why certain challenges seem to haunt you until you finally face them head-on. It is the silent music, to which your steps, knowingly or not, have been choreographed. The secrecy surrounding your soul contract is not entirely cruel. If you entered life remembering every detail, you might resist the very experiences meant to transform you. You might avoid the heartbreak that teaches compassion, the failure that breeds resilience, the betrayal that forces you to find sovereignty. Forgetfulness paradoxically allows the lessons to pierce you deeply enough to change you. But there is a difference between forgetting temporarily, as a part of the human journey, and never remembering at all. The tragedy is not that the contract is hidden. It is that so many die without ever lifting the veil to read it. And yet, in quiet moments, in the hush before sleep, in the pause between breaths, in the tears that rise without clear reason, you may feel it. That subtle pull towards something you cannot name. It is your soul, whispering, nudging you back toward the original agreement. The truth about your soul contract is not locked away in some celestial vault. It is inscribed in the marrow of your bones, in the rhythm of your heartbeat, in the strange synchronicities that nudge you toward a forgotten purpose. The more you begin to notice these patterns, the more the invisible ink begins to glow. But here is the part they never wanted you to discover. The contract is not unchangeable, It is not a rigid script carved in stone by forces beyond your will. It is a living document, one that breathes and shifts with you. The more conscious you become, the more you can amend its clauses, renegotiate its terms, and reclaim authorship over the story you are living. This is where the real danger lies, for those who thrive on your unconsciousness. An awakened soul is unpredictable. It cannot be herded or bought. It moves with the quiet authority of one who remembers they chose to be here and why. To embark on the path of rediscovery is not to seek out a map someone else has drawn. It is to become fluent in the language of your own soul. It is to trace the patterns that have repeated in your life, not with resentment, but with curiosity. It is to sit with the discomfort of unanswered questions until the answers rise from within. This is the beginning of liberation, not freedom from challenge, but freedom in the midst of it. We begin here, at the threshold of memory and possibility, because the truth about your soul contract is both intimate and infinite. It is the story of your singular life, and it is also the universal story of consciousness, choosing to descend into form. To know it is to remember that you are not merely a passenger in this life, nor a victim of fate, but a co-creator in the grand, unending dance between destiny and choice. And so, as we peel back the first layer of the veil, I will not ask you to believe blindly. Instead, I invite you to feel into the subtle hum of recognition within you, that sense that perhaps, just perhaps, you have been here before, that you are here for reasons you once understood, and that the time to remember has come again. To speak of a soul contract is to speak of a kind of architecture not built of stone or steel, but of intention and energy. Like the skeleton beneath the skin, or the scaffolding behind a stage, it supports and shapes everything you experience, even if you rarely see it directly. But unlike the fixed beams of a building, this structure is alive, breathing with your choices, responsive to your awareness. It is the invisible geometry between who you were before you arrived and who you are becoming with each step you take. The first pillar of this architecture is pre-incarnational choice. The notion that before your arrival here, you stood in the quiet expanse of the soul's domain and chose the broad strokes of your journey. It is not unlike an artist selecting the palette before touching brush to canvas. You may have chosen certain souls to walk beside you, certain challenges to sculpt your character, certain gifts to bring forth as acts of service. You may have even chosen moments of great loss, not because you desired pain, but because you understood that the shattering of old forms can birth a strength and compassion no gentler path could teach. In this light, life is not a punishment to endure, but a field of lessons your deeper self requested. Yet, this is where the second pillar emerges, the veil of forgetting. Upon entering the dense fabric of the human world, memory blurs. The choices you made on the soul level become whispers in the wind. This veil is not an error in the system. It is part of the design. Without it, the play could not unfold naturally. If you remembered every detail, who would betray you, when you would stumble, how you would eventually rise, the authenticity of the experience would be diminished. The veil makes the journey real. It allows you to feel the sting of surprise, the ache of longing, the sweetness of triumph, as though encountering them for the first time. The third pillar is what I call the tension between fate and free will. Imagine your soul contract as a river. It has a source and a destination, a certain course it is inclined to follow. Yet within it are countless eddies, tributaries, and currents you can choose to navigate. Some people sail in harmony with the current. Others fight it until exhaustion humbles them. In truth, neither fate nor free will dominates. They are partners in an intricate dance. The river offers a direction. The oars are in your hands. Interwoven with this is the fourth pillar, soul-level relationships. These are not mere accidents of proximity. The contract often contains specific encounters, some fleeting, others enduring, designed to catalyze growth. A lover who breaks your heart, maybe fulfilling a sacred role, agreed upon long before your meeting. A friend who appears in your darkest hour, may be the embodiment of a promise made between souls, in the realm beyond time. Even the adversaries in your life may be players in this hidden drama, their friction, sparking the fire of transformation. The fifth pillar lies in hidden clauses and evolving amendments. A common misconception is that the soul contract is an unalterable decree. But in truth, it is more like a framework, with room for improvisation. Certain experiences may be non-negotiable, the mountain you must climb, the threshold you must cross. But how you meet them, what meaning you make of them, and the speed at which you evolve can all shift with your awareness. As you awaken, you may even choose to revise your trajectory entirely, calling in new lessons and releasing outdated ones. This is where the danger lies. For those who prefer you docile, a conscious soul is a wild card in the game. Underlying all these pillars is a final, often overlooked theme, the illusion of separation. In the human world, you are taught to see yourself as an isolated self, navigating a chaotic reality filled with strangers and chance events. But through the lens of the soul contract, this separation dissolves. Every encounter is a meeting with another aspect of the one. Every trial, a conversation between different facets of the same vast consciousness. What happens to you is not happening to you, so much as it is happening through you in service of the greater unfolding. To truly grasp these themes is to begin noticing the hidden symmetry of your life. The moments that once seemed random take on the quality of deliberate brushstrokes. The people you once resented for their harm become unlikely teachers. Even your own mistakes, viewed through this lens, transform from scars into maps. You begin to see that your life, far from being a series of disconnected episodes, is a coherent story, and you are both the main character and the unseen author. This is the heart of the truth. They never wanted you to discover that your life is not a lottery, and you are not at the mercy of blind fate. You are a participant in a cosmic agreement, one you had a hand in shaping before you crossed the threshold into this world. And now, in every breath, you have the chance to shape it still. The language of the soul is rarely literal. It speaks in images, in the strange logic of dreams, in the kind of symbols that shimmer in the corner of your vision when the mind grows quiet. To approach the truth of your soul contract, you must step into that symbolic realm, because the deeper meaning of your agreement is often encoded in stories, ancient archetypal tales that your spirit understands even when your intellect cannot fully explain them. Imagine for a moment a great hall at the center of the universe. Its walls are lined with endless mirrors, each reflecting a different version of you, past lives, future selves, possible identities never chosen. In the middle of this hall sits a long, low table, and across from you are figures draped in robes of starlight. Some are familiar, their faces carrying the warmth of lifetimes shared. Others are strangers in form, but their eyes are so piercingly kind that you know them from somewhere beyond memory. This is the Council of Agreements. Here, before you took your first breath in this life, you spoke of the journey to come. You negotiated. You hesitated. You were shown possible paths, and you chose the one that held the seeds of the lessons you needed most. The ink on the contract was not made of pigment, but of intention. And when you placed your mark upon it, you felt the soft ache of knowing you would forget, and that remembering would be your task. One story says that before a soul descends to earth, it must drink from the cup of forgetting held by a guardian at the threshold. This guardian does not ask for your obedience, but for your trust. The draft wipes away the details of the agreement, but leaves the faint imprint of its essence. That essence becomes the quiet pull you feel towards certain people, places, and experiences, like a homing signal. It guides you even when you think you are lost. Another story speaks of the weaver and the flame. The weaver sits in the void, threading strands of light and shadow into the fabric of a soul's path. Each luminous thread is a gift, a talent, a joy. Each darker one is a challenge, a loss, a wound to be transformed. The flame, your spark of consciousness, is placed at the center of this tapestry. And as you live, it travels through the threads, illuminating them from within. The weaver's art is not random. Every intersection of light and shadow is intentional, meant to reveal a new dimension of your being. This story reminds us that the contract is not only about destiny, it is about artistry. Your life is both the loom and the pattern it creates. There is also the tale of the locked garden. In it, a soul enters a walled enclosure filled with flowers that bloom only when touched by rain. Outside the garden, storms rage, and the soul spends much time trying to avoid them, thinking storms are signs of misfortune. But one day, a wind forces the gates open. The rain floods in, awakening colors and fragrances the soul had never known were possible. Only then does the soul understand the storms were never meant to punish, but to nourish. In the language of the soul contract, this story whispers that your greatest hardships are often the very forces that make your dormant beauty bloom. And then, there is the mirror door. You will walk by it many times in your life without noticing, for it looks like any other doorway. But if you pause long enough to truly see your reflection in it, you will notice something strange. The person staring back at you is not your present self, but the self you could become if you stepped through. The soul contract often hides such doors in plain sight, moments when the choice to act, to forgive, to speak, or to let go will change the trajectory of everything. Most people walk past these doors, but when you recognize one, and when you step through, you feel the unmistakable click of alignment, as if you've just fulfilled a clause written long before you knew the language. These symbolic narratives are not just poetic entertainment. They are living metaphors embedded in the human psyche. They rise in myths, in recurring dreams, in the sudden images that come to you in moments of stillness. They remind you that your soul contract is not merely a list of tasks, but a multi-layered story in which you are both actor and author. And like all good stories, it contains mystery, transformation, and the constant possibility of rewriting the ending. To listen to the symbols is to begin remembering. And as you remember, you move differently in the world, with a kind of reverence for the unseen, with a readiness to meet each chapter not as a victim of circumstance, but as a participant in a far older narrative. You begin to sense that every encounter, every heartbreak, every spark of joy is a line in a script you once agreed to, and that the more consciously you inhabit it, the more it bends toward the growth and liberation you came here to claim. It is one thing to speak of soul contracts in the luminous realm of metaphor, quite another to let the knowledge alter the way you rise in the morning, the way you move through the ordinary hours, the way you speak to strangers, or face your own reflection. This is where the idea leaves the realm of cosmic poetry and begins to take root in the soil of your daily life. To live as one who remembers their soul contract is not to walk around cloaked in esoteric mystery or announcing to others that you have unlocked hidden truths. Rather, it is a quieter, deeper shift, a change in the way you perceive the patterns that weave through your days. Suddenly, a setback is no longer just a bad stroke of luck. It is a chapter whose meaning is still unfolding. A difficult person is not merely an irritant, but perhaps a catalyst whose presence is pushing you toward boundaries, clarity, or compassion you would not otherwise claim. This perspective does not erase the pain of life, but it infuses it with meaning. And meaning transforms the way pain shapes you. One of the first ways this awareness manifests is in the art of presence. When you sense that each moment might carry the faint signature of an ancient agreement, you begin to pay attention. You listen more closely, not just to the words others speak, but to the tone beneath them, the patterns between encounters. You watch the way certain situations seem to recur in different costumes, as if life is offering you another chance to answer the same question in a new way. You begin to notice synchronicities, those improbable alignments of events that from the outside seem like coincidence, but from the inside feel like the tug of a hidden thread, leading you where you need to go. Practical integration also calls for the cultivation of discernment. Not every difficulty is part of your contract. Some are simply the result of misaligned choices, unhealthy dynamics, or systemic injustices. Remembering your contract does not mean romanticizing suffering or passively accepting harm. It means asking in each moment of challenge, what is this here to teach me? And then just as importantly, what is mine to change? The soul's agreements often include both enduring certain trials and learning when to alter the conditions that create them. Knowing the difference is part of the mastery you came here to develop. There is also the matter of relationships. When you live with the awareness of soul contracts, you approach connections with a balance of reverence and freedom. You may see, in a friend's face, the glimmer of a promise made long ago. You may sense that a brief encounter with a stranger was a meeting scripted for the exchange of a single, transformative sentence. You may even find the courage to release relationships that have fulfilled their purpose not in bitterness, but with gratitude. You understand that the contract between souls does not always bind them for a lifetime. Sometimes it asks only for a chapter, and then there is the courage to renegotiate. As your awareness grows, so does your ability to sense when an aspect of your contract has served its purpose and can be released. Perhaps a lesson in endurance has already been learned, and now it is time to step into ease. Perhaps an agreement to dim your light for the sake of others has reached its natural end. In such moments, you have the right and the responsibility to amend your soul contract through conscious choice. This does not erase the original terms, but it updates them to match the evolution of your being. On a practical level, this often means cultivating stillness and reflection. It may be through meditation, journaling, solitary walks, or creative expression, any practice that allows the deeper currents of your life to surface. Without space to listen, the whispers of the soul are easily drowned out by the noise of obligations and distractions. Creating this space is not indulgence, it is maintenance for the vessel that carries your awareness through this life. Living with contract consciousness also tends to bring a heightened sense of responsibility. When you know that your life is part of a larger pattern, you realize that your actions ripple outward in ways unseen. The kindness you offer, may fulfill a clause in someone else's journey. The courage you model may free another from their own illusions. The integrity you hold may protect the sanctity of an agreement far older than either of you can remember. This is why awakening to your soul contract often comes with an unspoken vow to walk with as much awareness and compassion as you can, even when the road is steep. In the end, the integration of this knowledge is not about escaping the human experience, but deepening into it. You still pay bills, care for loved ones, face uncertainty, but now each act is nested within a larger understanding. You are not just surviving, you are participating in a living dialogue between your finite self and your infinite origin. You move through your days, not as one who is lost, but as one who is following the subtle compass of an agreement written in light. If you have followed the thread this far, you are no longer standing entirely in the same place as when you began. Something within you has shifted, perhaps subtly, perhaps unmistakably, as if a faint door has opened at the back of your awareness. You may not yet see the full contents of your soul contract, but you can feel its presence now, like a low hum beneath your thoughts, a quiet heartbeat in the silence between them. The truth they never wanted you to discover is not just that you have a soul contract, it is that you can live in conscious relationship with it. For centuries, people have been taught to look outside themselves for permission, for validation, for authority over the path they walk. But the deepest authority was placed within you before you were born. The contract you carry is not a chain. It is a compass, and it always points toward the version of you that your soul knows you can become. To step fully into that agreement is not to memorize every clause. It is to cultivate the capacity to listen, to notice when a decision resonates in your bones, when a path feels like home, even if it scares you, when an opportunity feels too small for the truth you are ready to embody. Living by the soul's compass will sometimes mean disappointing the expectations of others. It will sometimes mean walking alone through the unfamiliar, but it will also mean aligning with a current that carries you more surely than anything the rational mind could map. This is the transformational call to awaken from the amnesia of the everyday and remember that you are here by choice, that your trials are not random cruelties, but purposeful invitations, that your joys are not accidents, but confirmations of alignment, and that your power lies not in avoiding the challenges written into your path, but in meeting them. With the awareness that you are more than the human who struggles, you are also the soul who chose. In practical terms, this means living with a certain tenderness toward yourself and others. You may not know the exact terms of another's contract, but you can trust that they too are navigating lessons agreed upon in a deeper realm. This perspective does not excuse harm, but it opens the possibility of compassion for yourself when you falter, and for others when they do. It is possible to hold boundaries while also honoring the mystery of what another's journey is teaching them. And perhaps most importantly, stepping into your contract means embracing your role as a co-author. While the broad strokes may have been chosen before you arrived, every day you are offered the chance to shape the details, to add unexpected beauty, to write lines of love and courage into the margins. If you have lived under the belief that your story is already set, let this be the moment you realize the ink is still wet and your hand still holds the pen. When you rise tomorrow, the world may look the same rooms, the same routines, the same faces, but you will know that beneath the surface of all of it runs the living architecture of your agreement. And as you move through the hours, you may begin to see the subtle signals, the conversation that lingers in your mind, the chance encounter that stirs something ancient, the moment of quiet in which you feel, without knowing how, that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The invitation is simple, though not always easy, to live with your eyes open to the patterns, your heart open to the lessons, and your will open to the possibility of change. The contract was never meant to trap you. It was meant to awaken you. Now, you have touched its edge. What you do with that knowledge is the next clause you will write. So, step forward. Step into the agreement not as one bound by it, but as one empowered by it. Let each day become both a fulfillment of the story you came to tell and an act of authorship in the grander tale, somewhere beyond the horizon. The Council of Agreements is watching, not as judges, but as witnesses to the unfolding of the choice you made long ago, the choice to be here. Now, alive and remembering. And in the end, perhaps this is the greatest secret of all. You are not simply living your soul contract. You are here to transform it into a living work of art